Welcome back guys to another IMVU learning session, and in today's tutorial we will discuss more about furniture. But before we begin the tutorial, I want you guys to understand that there are different types of furniture, and we will tackle just one type today. But in a heads up, I'd love to show you guys what kind of furniture that IMVU offers. So the first stop, it'll be a bunch of chairs that it were just meant to be used as seats, and these are like a variety of them, and these only meant to serve one thing and just to be used. And on the other corner here, there's also another part of furniture, but this only static, and it was just not meant to be used, but it just meant to be for decoration. Some that can offer both, and then this is here. This is a chair set and a table. So you can use the chair, but the table are for decoration. The same thing is also for this example, as well as the car. So you can have a poses in it, but it's still meant for decoration as well. And there are also types of furniture that you can do is animated, just like these two here, and some that you can just animate by just riding or being in the right spot. Or you can also, let me just find a spot to stop here. Alright, come on now. Alright, so let's just go back to this one. For example, this kind of a furniture that will only trigger when you have a trigger animation word. For example, I have made this one, and if I were to type, let me just show you. If I were to type attack, and let me hit enter to show you guys what he will do. So as you can see, he started to have an animation upon request, which is the trigger word. But for today's tutorial, it's better for you to see exactly what you're going for in all of these furniture types. But for today, we will learn how to make a chair and make it usable, and just make sure that our character, when it's sitting in the right height, as well as fixing a very common problems that we will discuss at the end of this tutorial. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and begin with the favorite 3ds Max, and I will also include some goodies today, and that will be the furniture statue, which is this one for the sitting, as well as this one here for the scale of the chair when you're making. So this will be in OPG format. You have to download them if you really want to make sure that you're not mistaken when you make furniture. You have to compare the size of the character to your seat and where the character will be sitting. So the first thing you will need to do, let's say you're going to begin with an empty seat. You're going to go ahead and import, and you will find these two files included in a zip file, as well as for the first time I'll actually include the project file as well in the zip file with the OPG file. So you can go ahead and import the statue, as well as this one. It's just a simple import. You can also, if you don't have the menu here, you can just go ahead and choose import from here, and you will have the same file as I have. To begin with, you just go ahead and choose edge faces, and make sure to move this aside by hitting W on your keyboard, or you can use the select and move tool. Move it away, as well as this one. So to begin making just a very simple chair, I'm going to make sure to choose the geometry tab. And here I'm going to go ahead and make a box. I'm going to left click and drag and lift for the height. So it's just about reasonable here. Back into select and move. Move this up, and right off the bat, you can just go ahead and start move this right to where the character will be probably sitting. This is way too big, so I came back here to modify and then start play around with the parameters, the width as well as the height, the length. I'm sorry, to make sure I'm just having a reasonable sitting area for the character. And then I can just hit 0, which is right click here once. It will snap this to 0. And then what we need to do next is to right click and have this iterable poly. And right here we see edges. And you left click, hold left click and drag across the edges. You will notice here that all the edges are selected or highlighted in red. What you need to do next is to go ahead where it says connect. So move this left click and drag it just to move it away. And instead of says 1 here, we're going to go for 2 lines. And then we're going to expand them to the edge of the chair to make the leg. So let's go ahead and add that little plus sign. And then move the view again. And left click anywhere outside the area so deselect the edges. And then right from the top view, left click once here, and then drag across again for the other part. The lines to make kind of a square shape corners. So let's just go ahead and make sure the lines going across. So let's say that now. And while that's selected, you're gonna go back here where it says polygon. So left click once here, once it go in red. You can hold on control and start left clicking each corner until all the corners are selected. Next up, you're going to go ahead where it says extrude. And then here change this parameter until you get to the floor. And in case you don't know how far the floor is compared to the character, you can go ahead and where it says, let's see here, maximize viewport toggle. Right here, you can go ahead and just from this view here, left click and hit front. And see that line that going vertically and horizontally? That's the line you need. That's the floor. So you need to go ahead and start taking this back to where it says just right about here, and hit OK. And if you see that kind of a square shaped thing, all you got to do is just turn off show save frame. Sorry about that. So we're gonna go back into shaded mode, and then here I will change this to the left side, as well as here I'm gonna go from I'll leave this at the top, as well as this from the front, which you can see here. So next up, we can come back where it says maximize viewport and turn back edge faces. Right here, I want to build the back part of the chair. So I'm going to go ahead into polygon mode, and I'm select one, left click once here and hold on control again. Left click here, left click here. And instead of holding shift and drag, we can just do again extrude. And let's see here. And I just want it to be just right about here probably. And if you want to change or check with the character, left click on this guy and then make sure you're on the move, select and move, and drag him over. And then maybe just adjust him a little bit. So that's roughly, that should look, that's not bad actually. Despite there's an area here, but we'll talk about this later, that most of the furniture, the character in one way or another is sitting kind of offset, so don't worry about that. So let's move this guy aside again. So we have done this chair already, but we need to do a little bit of touches here. So I'm gonna go ahead and back to this again. Go into vertices. I need to give this a little bit of kind of personality. So I'm gonna left click and cross the lines again and go into connect mode. And instead of two lines, I'm gonna just do one and set this to 0 by right click it. And back to vertices again. And I'm select left click over these two vertices and then hold control again, left click and let go of the control. Now I will go into the scale, select unknown uniform scale and drag it in with the red axis. And I can also do another line in the middle of the chair. So I left click once. This is another technique to approach a line going across. Left click once here, or left click and drag. Once this line is selected, you can just go ahead and hit ring. That will highlight everything for you in parallel with that line you selected. And then you do the same thing again, connect. Hit OK. And back into vertices one more time. Left click and drag. So it's kind of a throne in a way. So now you can just turn off vertices. So this is the first part of you making the chair. You can just look for the chair on the distance. Let's go ahead and drag this lady here. It's about a half of her size, which is not bad. And then drag this guy. And he looks alright. To see everything in a better shape, turn off edge faces for now. So you can see. Also have realistic mode on. Not so bad as the seat fit the pose properly. Then left click and drag this guy aside. Back again to edge faces as well as shaded mode. Next up is the UV map, which is kind of tell the 3ds Max how this model should look like when we apply texture to it. So to do that, left click on the chair itself. Well, let's just go ahead and rename it. Chair. And then left click here. Type in U in your keyboard and you will have what says UV unwrap. Right here, you're going to go ahead and open UV editor. And it's going to look like mess at first, but that's okay. Make sure the select by elements is on as well as polygons. Left click and drag across and just have it flatten. So you don't get to see how the effect of the texture will be unless you apply texture. So you can just close this now. Back to where it says material editor. Right here we're going to select a brand new material. We can just go where it says diffuse map, apply, choose a bitmap, locate a texture map. I'm sure I have a texture map. Okay, I don't. I will include that also in the full folder. But for now, I'm gonna have to locate for a texture that I chose earlier. So that part might be blurred. Alright, let's just find a texture. I'll just go with this one properly. I'm just gonna choose a random texture that I have. I'm not gonna be picky about what to put there, but I just want you guys to practice on a better texture. So let's just see if I can get wood. Alright, let's give it a shot with this one. So once you find the material, which is I will include as well in the zip file, it will be like this. All you have to do is left click and drag it. If it's not showing, all you have to do is show shaded material in viewport, and then make sure you go to parent, and then make sure this also applied. So before we move any further, just to save you guys the step ahead of time, is to go ahead and start renaming this to kind of match the IMVU structure. So we can just go ahead and choose, come on now, Alright, let's left click here and type in, let's say chair, whatever name you like, space, and two brackets, open and close, and choose a number. Let's just go ahead for number 8. And left click here, drag across, copy that, Control C, and make sure show shaded material in viewport is toggled. Back to parent again, left click here and paste the same name. That will save us this step when we go to export for IMVU. So let's go ahead and close this now, and right click here and collapse to. And if you notice that everything looks kind of okay, but this is not what we're going for after a little bit of touches. But for example, if I want to fix the chairs, the legs of the chair, I can go back into here, have the UV unwrap again, and then come back here. Because this is a default unwrapping procedure, you can just edit and change anything, but default everything is kind of laid out for you. If you do want to kind of master unwrapping the legs, let's say, you can just left click where it says polygon here and watch everything updated on this layout here. So left click and start moving the view to select this part, that part, as well as this, while holding control on left clicking. If you deselect it by accident, you can just hit Control Z. So if all this part of that leg of the chair is selected, I can just go ahead and say cylindrical map, and it will just generate this kind of welded piece for that leg. I can just go ahead and freeform mode, start to scale this, but turn off the cylindrical mode first. Left click and drag, and then scale it down. Move it somewhere where it's not going to be interfering or overlap with other parts. So let's just put it this side here and do the same thing here. Left click once the face is highlighted, hold down Control and keep selecting other parts until the leg is completely selected. And you can see it here by zooming in and out by your mouse wheel. And then again, cylindrical, turn it off, and back here which is freeform mode. Do the same thing again. And start to scale it down. And you can even match the same size as long as it's highlighted in red, and then just move it aside, or you can leave it on top of the other one because it's going to be just kind of a one leg thing. So let's just go ahead and make sure it's kind of scaled up a little bit. So I will do the same thing with the other legs. So these two I have done, except for the one in the back. Again, hold on Control once one side is selected, and do the same thing here. Cylindrical, turn it off. So I will just have to do the same process again, just a little bit faster this time. So just, you don't really have to be very precise as you still practice with this, but get your hands on the software and get used to it is important. So we got these, that's the last leg that we haven't made. Again, cylindrical map, turn it off, and start to scale things down. So it's just, so I do believe that should be alright here. So now we have done the texture map. You can actually, after you finish texturing the chair, you want to add a little bit of graphic, you know, like stickers or cartoonish thing as a throw for little kids. You can always do that. You can modify this as much as you want if the entire structure that you built for the chair is the same. So now right click and collapse to. Next up is a structure that is so important, and I want you guys to be very much attention to that structure because this is how your chair is built. You don't have to rely on IMVU template. So you're gonna go ahead where it says maximize viewport toggle. From the top view, the chair is at your center. It's not that big of a deal. Back where it says create, and as well as for helpers. Here you're gonna see where it says dummy, and then lift, click, and drag a dummy, which is gonna be an empty square, like. So you'll see it here. But it's so important now is to left click on the chair and make sure it sets on the 0 axis in all. But before you do, if it's the green and kind of red axis sitting at the center of the chair, you need to go to says hierarchy and make sure this effect pivot only. And right here, you're gonna right click and set this to by right click once on the Z axis to snap it to 0. Turn this off. Now you can just go ahead and safely right click here once. What that will do, it'll change the position of the seat to be set at 0, 0, 0 in all the 3 axes, which is important. Next up is left click on the node that we made and also right click here until all sits at the 0, 0, 0 axis. And then next up is to go ahead and start renaming this to make sure this is setting at the root. So we're going to go ahead and call this root. Alright. Next up, we can hold this down. Left click once and drag. Once it's highlighted, you hold down Shift. And then make sure you also in select and move. Hold down Shift and drag once. Once it give you that option for copy, say yes. And this is important, guys. So please keep pay attention to this. This top node, which is I will show you guys here. This is exactly the node that when you're hovering over a furniture, that little node that indicates where the character can click and sit on the spot. So that's where the position for that little node, that's what we call handle 0, 1. Like in that chair, for example, I'm sitting it a little bit higher. So you go back in here and move it just maybe right about here, maybe. And then left click and name it as handle 0, 1. Alright. And because you did make your node from the top view, it's corrected. It's pretty much corrected in terms of the direction. If you did make this node, which is the root node, from any other perspective, it will conflict with how you're sitting. So now all I have to do is to copy 2 more nodes, and actually 3 more nodes. So let's just say I'm back to maximize viewport. On the root node, I hold on Shift again and drag. This time I will do like 2 copies. And it's also important to know this here will be named as catcher 01 underscore sitting with a capital S. And the one up front, it'll be called picture 01 underscore sitting. That is very important. I will actually make sure to leave you guys kind of a text note file that will explain exactly how to do, or probably do a picture where everything is explained. So now what we have got is this handle 01. You can go up to 99 in terms of naming. So this is, let's say if a seat called seat 01, catcher has to be 01, picture has to be 01, and if the seat calls 02, that will be handle catcher 02 and picture 02 and so on. So on top of the root node, we need to do another node, and if you left click again and hold on Shift and drag, it'll make another node when that's important because this is where the character will be sitting. So for now, let's just make it visible so you can rename it. And you can just call this seat. And again, 01 dot sitting was capital S. Sitting. And naming is important. If you did mess up with the spelling, it's not going to work. So you have to go back and start, read through it and see which one you have done mistakenly. So now I think we have built the structure for the seat. What we have left is kind of linking or connecting all these nodes together. For the easiest part, I'm just going to scale this one, which is the root node, to make it bigger. Basically, everything follow this bigger node here, and that's like the father of all the others. And that's where the seat will be moved, which is the same if you were to go ahead and move. That's the node, that's the roots. That's what it controls the actual seat position. So back to here again. Now what we need to do is local schematic view. If this grid is bothering you, you can just press G to turn it off. And now left click and drag. Make sure everything highlighted except for the root. So while handle, catcher, picture, and seat node is selected, where it says connect here, left click once, drag, move to root, and now you have this kind of view. Or if you want to have that kind of a tree view, this is how it's going to look like. That's all we need to do when it comes to building the seat structure. So now close this. Next up is the unwrap or the baking texture. So you do make sure to select here the chair and then move to modify. We don't have to move to it, but just to be sure, and press 0 in your keyboard, or you can go ahead and say render, and you will see where it's render to texture. That's what we're looking for. Next up, make sure the chair is on here. Drag down and make sure you add. And all you gotta do is have a diffuse map baked. And then here you choose the size. Kind of better if you go 256, or you can do 512 by 512. And then here you get to choose the format, which is, I might just locate where the file is going to be. Right here, I'm going to choose a PNG file because it's a lot crisp and clean when it comes to be rendered. So you can just call this anything. Let's just call it chair 0. I'm going to call it chair T for tutorial 01. And I'll save it. Next up is that you hit render. And once it finishes, it's going to give you something just like this here, because that's where the texture applied to a UV map and saved, so you don't have to worry about editing this again. You can just close it, as well as here. Now you go back into material editor. Remember when we applied the material editor for this and rename it, you can now go back into this and look for the material that we just made in our folder, and it's going to be in the PNG file, which is right here. And if you hit apply and then apply once again, make sure this all show shaded material is applied, and then go ahead and turn off edge faces now to make sure everything is correctly displayed and no kind of glitching or artifacts. Next up, you can just go ahead and now get rid of these two statues by left click once, or if you need edge faces, and hit delete. Left click and hit delete. One last time to check for the root node is sitting on 0, 0, 0 for all the axes. And then now what we have to do left is skin that mesh, which it will be do selecting the chair. Left click where it says modifier list and type in SK for the skin modifier. And for that matter, we need to add just one bone, and that is the main bone for our chair, and that is the root. So add and choose root from the hierarchy. And just to be in the safe side, if you accidentally happen to have more than one bone selected or added to here, you need to do this. And instead of just going, let's just go ahead and go picture and hit remove, remove, and remove. Make sure only if it's seed node. You have to make sure that root's only sitting into this hierarchy. And make sure to go edit envelopes. And if everything's set and red, you're golden, you're fine. But if you see blue or gray color or yellow, you need to go ahead and left click here once it says vertices, and then left click and drag across the entire model. And right below here which says effect, make sure this is set to be 100, or 1 is to stand for 100. And then what we have left is just to export. So to do that, left click on the model, which is the root. Go ahead and export. And make sure you go into skeleton. And I call this seat underscore T. You can just name it whatever you want. 01. And it will show you here. That's the same view that we saw earlier in the schematic view. The root node and everything just follow along with it. And we already exported the skeleton. Now we can export our chair. So we're going to go ahead and export again from here, or I will show you guys if you want to know how I did this menu here. I will be able to show you guys that later. So export again. And instead of skeleton, I'm going to change this to mesh. And it's very important, if you have followed this step here with like renaming convention, if it doesn't work for you, you have to do this earlier. This step here which says chair and then have a space and brackets and a number in between. So if you have come across an error while exporting, it's because you haven't followed that part of the tutorial. So now we can just go ahead and change the mesh again. Make sure it's set to mesh, because now we're exporting the chair itself as a geometry. So now we can go ahead and call this seat underscore T01 as well, whatever name. And once you hit OK, it will be showing you the skeleton that you already renamed earlier. Everything should be by default. And all you have to do now is go back into IMVU and go back into create, have the room or furniture, and then furniture sitting right here. And let me just change the room to something that we can see. Just turn off this one here. So that's the default chair. You can just move away. Back to where it says configuration tab. And then I'm going to have to locate where my seat node is, which is seat T01. I hit apply. And then again for the furniture. And I'm going to choose... it's interesting. Probably this one. Hit apply. And here we go, our chair. It's in white now, but that's okay because once you notice this already 0.8, which is that number that we have chosen for our material to be applied to. So that's the number 8, that you know that everything went correctly. Next up is to apply our material, and that's the one here. Hit apply. Everything looks smooth and clean. No glitches, no issues. Next up, you can just go ahead and hit just for now save, because you don't want to lose that. And the moment of truth, once you left click, you notice the handle, which is, let me show you, that's the node that we applied. It shows displayed right up here as soon as you hover over the mouse, the chair. So left click. Okay, that's a very common problem, is because of the seat node itself we applied. It's a bit higher. So to fix this is easy as going into here. And that's where the seat node is. You'll move this down a little bit to approximately half of the leg of the chairs. So to see this even more clean, we can just go ahead and from this left view and drag this just right about here maybe. And then left click again on our root node and then export back to where it says skeleton. And we can just do this one, override everything as default, back to IMVU again, and then the word configuration tab, and just locate where our skeleton is, and we start getting a little bit better. Alright, so we can just keep dragging that thing down. Let me turn off the G in my keyboard to see where my setting node is. Alright, let's just try this again. Left click, and of course having this menu right here is so fast, instead of going through here and have to manage and navigate your way. So if you're really interested to see that little trick here, I will show you guys how to do it by requested a video or so. So now we can just keep trying to see if this will be fixing the problem that we have. And we start getting there. You can just go ahead and keep lowering this down a little bit more. Left click here, export, and until you get the right height for the character. That's better. That's almost what I want. It's not really bad at all, in fact. So with a few touches, you can add a little bit of shadow, and we will discuss about this later. But for now, what I'd like you guys to start practicing is to make a chair that is usable, and you can practice it by yourself when you're sitting in the character. And it's always a kind of a good practice to keep a little room under the character, as well as the legs in the back, because with kind of, you know, clothing and the accessories, it'll make the character look more buff. So let's just go ahead and give it a shot here and see with that character. And the reason why, because this has an avatar sitting pose as well as scale. There we go. So you kind of get the idea. You know, this is really as close as it gets for you to make a chair. So with a little practice, we will just encounter more stuff and learn more stuff about how to make furniture. And just to give you guys a little bit heads up, there will be a file, that zip file that I will include in the link. It will have the texture and the mesh, as well as the 3ds Max file that we did for today. For my subscribers, they will be winning or be gifted this kind of chair. It's pretty much the exact same process that we did with that chair, but it'll be all done and made. They can just, with a few touches, I will probably add like a shadow, and I will be getting it to the most active subscriber of this month. They can just freely use it, submit it, or if you want, you can apply it as a drivable product where other people can take it and edit it, and you will be taking a full benefit from this. The other thing, this video more likely is going to be in 4K, which is the first time I get to try the settings. It'll take a little bit of time to render, but I will be making it in 4K. If you guys are interested to see it in 4K, let me know in the comment section. So before we go, there is 2 more parts that I wanted to discuss for now, and that is for later videos, which is encounter problems with furniture that we have to always be in a lookout for. And that is, let me just begin with this one here. So by default, if you make a set of chairs like this, as well as a table as a part of the furniture, it makes more sense to make the anchor point, or the root node, which is right here, it's what controlling the entire set. And instead of being here, which is making more easy for me to rotate the whole set, the guy kind of happened to have it on this chair, which is, for my guess, this was the beginning or the first chair that he made, and then he started duplicating everything, and then later he added the table. which it makes it so hard for me and difficult to change the rotation, as you can see. So instead of rotating from right here, he made the anchor point or the root node on that section here, which is a problem. The other thing is, which is animated furniture. And this is a furniture piece that was gifted to me by IMVU. But let me show you guys what happened here if I let it go. See, it finished the animation playing and it did not loop. It just snaps back to that T pose, and you even see the guitar itself. It start to glitch. You can see it. It is a bigger problem also if you make an animated texture and animated furniture and you're not following up with the animation, which is a huge problem. But it's just to get, to keep your minds ahead of time and just learn as you go. So that concludes our today tutorial, and I hope you guys have learned something today. And as always, if you need any more tutorials, you can always request. And I wish you guys have a good one.